this is better glutes, another muscle group that relatively high amount of nonsense gets talked about within the pain and rehabilitation world. And so what we want to do is essentially point you towards some really useful stretches and some really useful strength interventions for these muscles. So stretching our glutes, the first thing we have to remember is that most of our glute muscles become eventually tissue and muscles of our lower back. So we want to join those two things together when we're stretching. We've got two basic options for that. One is our M-sit and rotation. So I sit like so, I lift my bum up and place one leg over like this. And then what you want to do is get into this position here where your leg is comfortable in its contact point here and you're sitting with a round back and not much stretch feeling in your glutes. We make it easier by going longer on the ground. We make it harder by shortening up on the ground. And then in this position, press your knee away from your face and then pull your belly button up and forward towards that front ankle. And you're using your back to stretch your bum, and this will do so much more good where a lot of people constantly struggle for feelings of tension, but none of our classic hip stretches are doing good. It is because the tissue doesn't stop at the hip, it connects to the lower back. And so this sitting up motion to stretch the glutes effectively reflects the connection that exists between our hip muscles and our back muscles. And if you stretch your hips all the time but still feel tight there, there's a good chance this is part of what you're missing. So just to show you on the other side, that's lift the bum, place the leg, sit the bum back down again, adjust so that you're comfortable in the relaxed position, press the knee away, pull the belly button up and forward, and that for a lot of people will stretch their glutes in a way that other stretches just don't quite get to. So that's our stretch option number one. And then our second stretch option for glutes is our lateral line stretch. So our M-sit is a really great option for giving a rotational stretch for our glutes, but our outer portion of glutes is really more stretched by movements where our legs kind of cross back over to the other side of the body, and in that sense it's really part of the lateral line running all the way from the outer ankle right up through the fibula, outside of the body, all the way up like so. And this is one of those stretches. Yes, we're putting it in for glutes, but it's also fantastic for lots of shoulder problems and really important for anybody with recurrent ankle rolls as a kind of injury problem. So our basic lateral line stretch requires something solid to hang on to. In a home setting, often a door frame is the best place to do this. But I want to place so if I'm trying to stretch my left side, I'm going to put my left hand over my head and grab a hold on the inside of the door frame, and then my right hand's going to go in this position here. And my most basic option is to essentially push with this hand to move the hips out to the side and just feel a big stretch from the armpit all the way down into the hip like so. And as I do this, I'm careful not to twist one way or other and avoid the tension that exists in the outside of the body. I want to keep moving in that left-right fashion, not add any other movement to it like so. So I get here, and the first check is, can you let that arm go fully straight and really trust that to kind of hang yourself off? And then can you add a bit more stretch to the trunk portion by pushing away with the hand? And for most people that will feel like more of a side stretch. If you feel that already in your hip muscle, then you know you're really tight through this system. If that's feeling okay, our next stage is to essentially bring the stretch leg around and place it into roll and load position like so. So the ankle's on its outside, so the stretch begins right down in the outside of the foot. The knee's nice and straight, so the stretch is going through that point. And then I just do the exact same thing again. So I hang from the top arm, I push away with the bottom arm, and I get myself into this wonderful lateral line stretch. And it is literally probably the most popular stretch I give out in the clinic. And I'd be confident that an awful lot of people watching this will feel significantly tighter down one side than the other. Now, what that tension can look like is focal soreness. So you might feel this in your shoulder blades, or you might feel this in your hip blades. If you get that pain before you get stretched, then there probably is tension underlying the pain once we can get through that. One important thing to think about is this system's got a lot to do with what's happening through here, and what's happening through here has got a lot to do with breathing. So once I'm in my stretch position, I can think that every exhalation is an opportunity to relax the diaphragm, lower the abdominal pressure, and therefore dive a little deeper into the stretch movement. So I'm very aware to essentially not hold my breath and try and push towards more low tide exhalation dominant breathing patterns while I'm in position. And then the other thing I can do while I'm here is just move my head through the side bending pattern. So doing the last little bit of stretching on this lateral line is to essentially let the head tip over to that side through there. And it is really useful for the hip, but it's really basically anything that's affecting us up the outside of the body. But chronically fussy here, here, or here, and this is definitely a stretch you don't want to go by. That hopefully gives you some good ideas of how to stretch your glutes in ways that are likely to be more effective than our conventional stuff. And exactly the same problem exists with strengthening. Strengthening your glutes is a good idea, but walking sideways with a mini band around your ankles or lying down and doing clamshells are for most people too low a load exercise to really change what's happening in their glutes. Nothing for your glutes makes that much sense as long as your foot's not on the floor, because we've got very direct connections from our glute muscles via our iliotibial band and our outer knee, and then right down into controlling the arch of the foot. So our glute muscle really does control the arch of the foot. So where we can train it in standing, we probably should. So our best option to strengthen glutes under body weight is essentially a single leg and forward bend or reverse deadlift. And in this position here, I'm standing on one leg, I've got the wall for support. Please do take support. If you're standing on one leg and trying to strengthen, you don't want to be wobbling for balance. They essentially subtract from each other rather than enhancing. So when you're on one leg and you're working on balance, work on balance, but when you're on one leg working on strength, take care of balance somehow. Okay, so that's my position, and then my basic command I give the body is move the hip you're standing on. So soften the knee 5 to 10 degrees, keep the back shape as it is when you're stood upright, and bend forward as far as you can before your hamstring stops you or your back wants to round into the movement. And the first thing we want to establish is just making this choice of moving the standing hip. I don't need to turn around as I switch legs. Doesn't matter which way around I have it. So on the other leg, it looks like this. And the movements here, that's what I tell myself. It's not a squat and it's not a back round. It is just a movement through the standing hip. And if I can establish that well as a pattern, what's really useful is to just add a little bit of weight to the opposite hand. So I'd be this way around, the exact same pattern of movement. Doesn't need to be something fancy like my dumbbell. Can easily be a bag for life with a couple of rocks or bottles of water in it, but decent weight. For most people, once they've learned the pattern, they're going to want at least 5 or 6 kilos, even if you're only little. And nothing wrong with pushing the weight up on this movement. Fundamentally, a lot of glute training goes wrong because it never actually puts us into anything that's strong enough to challenge the muscle. So we need these body weight exercises to really achieve that. And then the other thing that goes really well with this set is our hip hitches. If you're watching this video and you haven't done hip hitches yet, then definitely check that out, because that's another fundamental part of coordination of our glute system.